Hello, I'm David.
And I'm Andrea.
Welcome to If I Can, You Can. This is the first in our series of video podcasts, which is designed to be progressive lessons on how to can.
Today we're going to can cherry jam and infused cherries with those beautiful cherries that David fetched at the market this morning. And the recipe and the instructions can be found on canningusa.com.
We have all of our equipment laid out, ready to go. That's the most important thing in canning. Clean kitchen, equipment ready, ingredients ready so that when you start, you don't have to stop. All of the equipment that we need today are listed on canningusa.com. The first item we need today is a cherry pitter. We're going to be using lemons, so we have a lemon juicer, a citrus juicer, measuring cups, a candy thermometer. This is a jar lifter and a needle for the infused fruit. And this is a funnel for canning. Paper towels. Everything is listed on canningusa.com. And this is a water bath canner. And we're using a copper jam pot. We have jars for canning jam. And jars for canning jam should be 2-piece, and they should not be jars that have been reused. And then for the infused cherries, we're using a decorative pot. These fancy pots can't be used for normal canning, but for infused cherries, they're okay, and they make a terrific gift. These were freshly picked yesterday afternoon by the farmer. She guaranteed me. So we're going to go ahead and put these in the water. When we wash cherries, we want to make certain that we get them in enough water so that they can float. Because cherries that float, like this one here and this one here, shouldn't be used for canning because there's a good chance they might have a worm.
Okay, these are really beautiful cherries that David got at the market. And so what we're doing is I'm choosing the most beautiful ones and cutting off the stem and then putting them in the pot that will then be for the infused cherries. And the other ones, well, the less beautiful ones, so to speak, I'm pitting with my knife because David has the cherry pitter. And I put them in a bowl. And then this is the compost bucket, which is for the pits and the stems, so that I can put it outside on my compost pile. It's important to remove all the bruises on the fruit, or if the fruit has a bad spot, you need to cut that away. You don't want that in your jam.
At the same time, I'm going to begin heating my water to can the jam. This needs to come up to boiling, 212 degrees Fahrenheit. These are the cherries that Andrea has selected for infusion. They're the most beautiful cherries that we could find and unblemished. What we'll do is simply cut off the ends of the stems. And after we've cut off the stems, which we put into our compost, we pierce each cherry with a needle. And we go all the way through so that the infusion can pass through the skin and into the fruit. Yum, these are my favorite. Here I've sliced lemons and I'm juicing them, removing the seeds, and I'm reserving the skins because we're going to use those too, and then measuring the amount of lemon juice I need. For jam, we have the fruit, sugar, and acid. Lemon juice is the acid, and the acid will react with the natural pectin of the cherries. Cherries vary in pectin, and the more sour a cherry is, the more acidity it has. And with more acidity, the thicker the jam will become. Then we'll take the lemon juice, Over here to my jam pot. Take out this little seed here. The recipe for cherry jam is on canningusa.com. I've put in the measured amount of sugar and lemon juice. Infused cherries are a terrific alternative to dessert or a digestive. And what I like to do is I like to infuse cherries with Grand Marnier because it's my favorite. And it's a great way to make your Grand Marnier stretch because when you serve it, you aren't serving very much. Now that the cherries are in the jars, and here I've used fancy jars, I just simply... that sounds good. I'm ready for a glass of Grand Marnier right now. And because we like Grand Marnier so much, we're going to make 3 of these, and we'll make another with Armagnac. What do you think, Andrea? 2 with Armagnac?
Yeah, 2 with Armagnac.
That's good, good, good. And for the last, we'll put in some Seagrams. I love to infuse fruit. I like to infuse cherries, which are good to serve with after dinner coffee. Or sometimes I'll infuse nectarines or peaches. You can use virtually any type of alcohol you like. Nectarines are very good with scotch and drambuie. And peaches are very good with a little bit of Porto wine.
When your sugar mixture reaches the right temperature, then you're ready to add the fruit. So we're going to add these lemon halves that we already squeezed. And it's very important to purchase organic citrus fruit because otherwise there are chemical residues on the skins of citrus fruit. And now I'm going to add the pitted cherries. And be careful with this process because the sugar is very hot, and if you get splattered with it, it's extremely dangerous and will burn you. So I'm incorporating the fruit into the sugar and lemon juice. Okay, you may be wondering at this point why I go to all this trouble. Why David and I spend at least 25 days a year canning. Sometimes more. And the most important thing for me is that I can feed my family the best food possible. Of course, my kids love to have their pasta with tomato sauce. And that way I know that I am feeding them organic, homemade tomato sauce all year round. So now we're going to bring this up to a boil. And then we're going to cook it for about 15 minutes. Before we can it. Now we're going to test whether the syrup has thickened enough. It's been cooking for about 15 minutes, and the way we test it is David's taking some of the syrup and he is going to drip it onto the plate. Anything will work, a saucer, it doesn't matter. And then let it cool to see how thick it will become when it cools down after it's been canned.
Okay, it's been in there a minute. I'm sure it's ready. It's been on the plate for a minute inside the refrigerator. Now when I turn it, I think that's thick enough. The larger one's running, but the smaller ones don't move. And now we're ready to can. So we're going to take it over to the sink, which is where Andrea and I like to can, and we're going to put it into the sink. You'll want to protect your sink with a hot pad first. When working with jars, we want to make certain that we always do it on a cloth because we want to avoid slippage. I'll take a jar, and with a funnel, I fill. And we want to leave about ½ inch of headspace. The headspace is there for expansion and contraction. Andrea is running a wooden spatula around to remove all the air bubbles. And then she is wiping around the jar to ensure there isn't any food between the jar and the lid. This is going to be good. When wiping down the jars, use a paper towel and never use the same part of the paper towel twice. The water bath canner is at 212 degrees. It's at a slow simmer. I'm going to take the jars and using my jar lifter, I'm going to put each one into the water. It's been 5 minutes. Now that they're finished processing, we can remove them and set them on a cloth so they don't skid. Our jam's all been processed, and now we're letting it cool on a cloth. It'll pop as it cools, which is just the seal of the lid. And then after it's all cooled, I let it cool for 24 hours. We label and store it. For labeling and storage instructions, just go to canningusa.com.
Please join us for our next podcast where we show you how to can pie filling and fruit and syrup. Thanks for joining us.
Goodbye.